We have some major regulatory changes in tattoo. Like I said, you know, there's no reason for this regulation. There's no problem in tattooing that someone said, hey, we need to fix with some new laws. Government's role to step in is only when a self-regulation fails, and that has not happened in tattoo. We have been one of the most successfully self-regulated industries in the world. So this industry has successfully navigated new pandemics like COVID, but AIDS, like hepatitis C. It has great hygiene levels. When gloves became used, they are rolled out very quickly. We have autoclaves. You know, it's one that's adapted. So these regulations have come in without really any specific need, but you know, we've gotten big. We're getting media headlines. One of the issues is there's not a lot of scientific data, you know, certainly at a molecular level for tattooing and the science behind tattooing. And so when alarmist challenges are put forward, it is a little bit difficult to answer because there hasn't been a problem. So it's difficult to prove the absence of a problem. Anyway, as a result, we're going to talk about some of the regulations, and the reason why is because these may not be affecting you right now, but you will get clients that are asking you questions because it is in this kind of tabloid press world creating headlines that they are reading, like, oh my God, you know, tattoos are linked to various problems. And so it's natural. So the first piece is the US regulation called MoCRA, that is a modernisation of cosmetic regulations. So for regulatory purposes, tattooing and cosmetic tattooing like PMU and SMP, they're all under the same bucket. It's the same thing. Cosmetic is anything that's going to be rubbed, poured, sprinkled, sprayed, applied or inserted into the human body for the purpose of altering or beautifying the body. So that is tattooing, that is SMP. So we're all in together under this Act. What it did is it transferred the authority and ability to make laws around tattooing to the FDA, which is the Federal Drug Administration, Food and Drug Administration, very powerful body in the USA. So it can now pass laws around tattooing. You can wake up on night with whatever they feel. They have a very wide remit. At the moment, they haven't done much. They've issued some warnings around topical creams and pain relief that had too much lidocaine in it. And they have started a consultation process that does involve tattooing, which is tattooists, which is good, and I'll mention one in a minute. But the reason why this is important is because, you know, to us, our equipment is not made here in Australia. A lot of it is made in the USA. So the fact that the USA manufacturers are going to be subject to this laws will affect the equipment that we get. Oops. Right, so the Alliance of Professional Tattooists, this is a USA group of, similar to our Tattooing Guild and PTAA. They are a collection of tattooists that are responsible for dealing with regulatory authorities and the media. They've produced a lot of content. A lot of it is available on their site or one of their members, Ben Shaw, about this regulation. They have a consultation body called the FDA Body Art Committee, and the Alliance of Professional Tattooists are a member of that, and it's worth checking out. It is a big piece of legislation. It will cover labelling, ingredients, it'll look into the chemical substance of things, but also it will look into manufacturing processes. So manufacturers of needles will need to show that they are doing everything safe, and when they're saying that everything is sterilised and EOS gas, you know, contained, that is actually what it is. And tattooists will need to show that they are using supplies that are fit within those guidelines. So there's responsibilities on both sides. The other one is REACH, which you probably are all aware of by now. That happened in 2022, so it's been in place for 2 years. It's in the European Union, so it's only in Europe, and basically took away all of their coloured inks. So it banned 2,000 pigments in total, but most importantly grabbed green 7 and blue 15.3, which were two very important inks that were present in almost all different colours as one of the colours that made up the spectrum, and took that away. There was no reason, no evidence for this ban. It was a knee-jerk reaction, but overnight tattooists found that their coloured inks were now illegal. And they have had to use these new inks that are made avoiding these banned pigments, and they've been in place for 2 years. I was over in Europe this year talking to a lot of studios, and the experience has been extremely poor. The inks are very difficult to work with. They're not particularly bright. The colours aren't good. They're difficult to go into the skin. Now we're 2 years down the track and they're seeing the results of healed tattoos, and they're rubbish. A lot of the inks are falling out and they've got real problems. So what happens when you've got a law that people don't respect, that there's no need for, and is undermining the trade that it's meant to be helping or protecting? Of course, people don't pay any attention to it. So you have a massive incentive for them to be using other inks that are not compliant with this legislation, right? Under the table or whatever. The problem with that is that there's a euro $50,000 fine and 2-year imprisonment, potentially, if you're caught doing that. And probably what is even worse is that your client, when they find out that they've been tattooed with banned inks, they could sue you, and your insurance is not going to then cover you because you've used, you know, a product that was against the law. And so you have real problems with that, and we don't want to see that in Australia. And there's a risk of that happening if you're not really engaged with your regulators. We are seeing some headlines produced that are quite alarmist, as I said. Stuff that is, you know, it's clickbait, right? I mean, tattoos linked to a higher lymphoma risk is, of course, if you read that article, there was absolutely no evidence of tattoos creating any risk around lymphoma. What had happened is someone studied those two, you know, a group of people that weren't tattooed, a group of people that were tattooed. They found no evidence that tattoos were creating it. But because they did the study, hey presto, things are linked. And you get a headline like that. So what we're saying to tattooists is, you know, look out in the press, try and read these articles and pay attention to them, because your clients are going to be asking these questions. With the FDA law in the USA, we're expecting to see more and more press, and naturally it's reasonable to say it'll float down to Australia again and we'll get some regulatory actions there. So what can you do? Unity is extremely important right now. We have two great bodies that bring artists together for a unified voice when dealing with regulators and the media, and that is the Alliance of Professional that is the PTAA and the Australian Tattooist Guild. So if you're not a member of these organisations, it is very important now more than ever that you do join up with them. They're relatively cheap, $100 a year will get you membership, and then when we do have these regulatory pressures starting to emerge, then these groups have the support that they need to say, we speak for the artists, and they're very used to speaking with regulators. If a lot of you might have been aware of the stuff that was going on in Queensland over the last 2 years, and that's where these groups were successfully able to walk the government off the cliff of causing some really nasty and hurtful regulation that wasn't needed. So join those guys, watch out on social media, follow the hashtags, check out Ben Shaw and his stuff, and get some more information of those, or hey, just ask your suppliers, because we will know more about it. If we can't answer your question, we'll help you navigate through to the right answers.